Mortgage rates are holding steady above 7%, up a full point in 2 months, while the 10-year yield sits near its highest level since May. Let's dig a little further into the impact on the housing market. Diana Olick has the latest builder sentiment numbers and a look at one trend picking up steam. Brown Brothers Harris Stevens CEO Bess Freedman has the realtor's view on the landscape today, and UBS homebuilder analyst John Lovallo brings us the housing trade. One of my next guests says President-elect Trump's in-depth knowledge of real estate and development will be a boon for the industry unless tariffs raise costs for builders. Joining me now is Bess Freedman, CEO of Brown Harris Stevens, and on set with me for the homebuilder trades, as mentioned, John Lovallo is with UBS, and welcome to both of you. Bess, maybe just kind of set the stage for us. How difficult have 7% mortgage rates been this time around?
You know, I think we're still reeling from high prices during the pandemic, and the fact that rates have been now again ticking up has not been helpful, and we're desperate for more supply. And so I think right now what we're seeing is buyers and sellers are on the sidelines. There was a study that came out that said the median first-time home buyer today is almost 40 years old, versus 10 years ago, they were 28 years old. And I think there's just not enough affordability for first-time home buyers. And I think rates have played into it, supply has played into it. And so I think the reason why the Dems lost so bigly is because of economic hardship. The American dream of buying your first home has been a real challenge in the United States. And so I think people want change. They want to be able to afford their first home.
Sure. And you're sitting there, correct me if I'm wrong, in Manhattan. I don't think there's a lot of building going on there for a first time, home building. So what do you do in a market, which yours is maybe an extreme example of, where there's just not enough supply coming onto the market to change affordability in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. There's been a lot of discussions about converting some of the office into residential, but I know that the Trump administration has discussed loosening up regulations, but most of those things are done at the state and local level. So we have a lot of red tape, and so there are challenges there as well, because people want to be able to afford their first home, but the prices, they've been priced out, and sellers are staying on the sidelines, many of them. Why? Because they've locked in a 2 or 3% rate. And interestingly enough, sellers today, their median age is 63 years old. So we're seeing this shift. And I think the best way to build economic security for your future is buying a home, investing in a home. And I think people feel a little bit locked out of that. So hopefully we're going to see some change in that area.
And that's a perfect place, John, to bring you in and talk about what you anticipate on the home building front in the next couple of years.
Yeah, Kelly, thanks for having me. I agree with Bess. I think that the most important determinant of housing over the next 4 years is going to be interest rates. If we think about the policies that have been introduced, repurposing federal land, good idea on paper, but a lot of this is in very remote areas. Increasing tax incentives could drive up home prices, frankly.
Could drive prices higher.
Yeah. And then deregulation that's been kind of broadly put out there, but as Bess was saying, there's very little that can be done at the state and municipal level. So what does this mean for the home builders? Well, I could tell you, one, even in a higher interest rate environment, these builders have shown the ability to execute extremely well.
It's an advantage for them because they can do buy downs. They have an affordability edge, don't they?
100% correct. And what it will also do is keep that existing home inventory off the market. There's been a lot of concern about that coming back. And so the builders will continue to do very well, I think, in an environment with higher rates. Now, don't get me wrong, I would prefer lower rates. I think it's good for housing in general, and will open the door for more traffic.
But so because we don't know which way rates are going to go, unfortunately, you guys are in an industry that's so sensitive to it, but yet has very little control over it. Right. So what else in terms of getting more supply onto the market is possible, John, in the next couple of years? I mean, do you think the builders, how much are they adding to home building supply a year at this point? 2-3%? I mean, I'm curious how much of an impact they're having. Yeah,
that's exactly the number. And so it's difficult. There are a lot of constraints out there, land being probably the biggest constraint, and that's very municipal driven. But labor is another concern, right? And there's 300,000 to 400,000 shortage of folks out there in the construction industry.
Well, now that you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, 14% of the workers might be unauthorized according to estimates. So if that comes under pressure under Trump administration, what's going to happen?
Well, right, because 31% are immigrant workers. And
31% according to 31 are immigrant, but maybe half of that is unauthorized.
It's very possible. And so what that could do is be, very inflationary. Well, it's going to be very disruptive in a lot of ways, but inflationary if in fact that labor pool is pulled out. And these kind of bottlenecks at the home building level have just limited the amount of supply that can come onto the market.
Is it extreme enough that you would actually see the major home builders underperforming? And if there was enough of a constraint on being able to actually just bring supply to market because of the immigration issue?
Good question. I think it actually is a benefit, again, because they are big builders that can guarantee volume to the trades. And so if you're a trade and you go to a D.R. Horton, and D.R. Horton says, hey, look, you could line build across these 200 homes. That's very attractive. And so I think that you'll see the big builders absorbing the labor that's out there.
Bess, what would you add to that? What would make a big difference on kind of the national level?
I mean, I think for us, interest rates, getting them down would be good. And it's hard to say when that's going to happen. It looks like because the 10-year Treasury yield has, jumped up, that there's a sense that there's going to be some inflation with the new administration. And so we're going to have to see. And we have this huge deficit. So it's hard to tell where the market's going to be. But rates coming down would be good. Prices coming down, we haven't seen prices really come down. So those two things have really held people back from getting into the market. So I'll take either of those two.
Sure.
I'd love to see either of those two.
What about on the tax front, on the personal tax front on SALT, which was a big hit to your area? Is there anything there that would move the needle, you think?
Yeah, that would be great. I think that Trump has mentioned that he would lift the cap on the SALT deduction, which would be a good thing. I think that would get people to want to be a part or stay in New York City and buy here, invest here instead of moving to other places with lower tax states. So that would be a good thing. We're open to that. We're open to change, and we're open to creating discussions and collaboration and having an environment where people feel like they can have families here and do those sorts of things. So I think it will be a little bit of a mixed bag, because if there is, as John said, a lot of deportation, the construction, I think, is lacking something like 500,000 people right now. So I think we have to look at those challenges as well.
Yeah. Quickly, John, before you go, a couple of names that you think maybe ones to watch in the next couple weeks in particular.
Yeah, we like D.R. Horton as our top pick. We also like Meritage Homes, which is in many ways a smaller version of Horton, really entry-level focused.
All right. And because there's catalysts, or just because those are the ones that you think have the best setup into 2025?
Affordability is the biggest challenge out there. You need the folks that can get the homes out there at the lowest prices.
All right. Thank you both. Really appreciate it. Bess Freedman and John Lovallo. Thank you. We have a great one, she said.